If I'm someone who is not numbers focused or goals focused, and I've been trying to extricate myself from that side of BookTube for a long time, why am I taking on a Read What You Own challenge with my own twist? I'm Jack, this is Red Book Joy, and the Read What You Own challenge is something that lots of people partake of here on BookTube. Ollie from Ollie, who's got a great channel, he has been doing this for a number of years now, and he likes to try and read what he has on his shelves before buying anything new. And I think he usually sets himself like a 100 book challenge, though I think he's doing something less this year, not quite 100 books. I might be wrong, but I did watch the video. It's a while ago now, but I did say when I watched it, I really do need to do this. I am someone who is not averse to buying books and not reading them straight away. I'm not one of those people who has to have a 0 TBR, and I'm going to get into all of this in a moment, because being me, I had to sit down and think about, why do I want to do this challenge? What am I going to get out of it? How am I going to make it fit me? Because also I'm someone who has spent quite a bit of time in the last few years untangling myself from the numbers focused, goals focused way of reading that can be quite prevalent here on BookTube, that I partook in the beginning, and that kind of messed me up a little bit in terms of my happiness level and the pressure I was putting myself and making reading out to be something that's, you know, a chore rather than a hobby. So I'm trying to approach this in a way that doesn't completely undo all of the other work I've been doing to extricate myself from this idea that I have to read a certain amount. So how am I going to do that when the Read What You Own challenge usually is to set yourself a book challenge? This year I think they've talked about setting a pages challenge, because some people like to read lots and lots of the small books off their bookshelves to clear those. Some people then avoid the bigger books because that's just one book where you could read probably 3 books in that time. So I think some people are setting a number of pages challenge. I'm not going to do any of those things. Yeah, I'm going to get into my whys, my rules, my thoughts, my personal issues and barriers to potentially completing this challenge. And yeah, and hopefully you'll enjoy my version of it. And it might, for the people out there who don't want to be numbers focused when it comes to goals, this might be something that helps you as well, or it may not, I don't know. This is just for me. I thought I'd share my thoughts in case anyone else found them interesting or anyone else wanted to try it my way. I thought it was also a very fascinating subject, because it made me sit down and really think about my book buying hobby versus my book reading hobby. And I do see them as two separate kind of but linked hobbies. So one doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the other. And in the last few years it definitely hasn't had much to do with the other, because I've been reading pretty much anything but what's on my shelves, because of course we're constantly buying and acquiring books. If you're on BookTube, I've bought more books in the last 4 years than I've bought in my entire life, I feel like. Then you're constantly acquiring books, but are we reading those books? And if we're not reading them, why are we acquiring them? Though I'm also not someone who feels that I have to have a 0 TBR. I'm going to get into all of my personal kind of attitude towards all of these things. I was looking at the Read What You Own challenge video that Ollie put out this year, and I was just like, I think I'm going to have to do this. Not because I feel like I've got too many unread books, though we'll get into that, but because I just want to read them. I want to read them, and the more books I keep buying, the less likely it is that I'm going to read all these books, because I am not the world's fastest reader. I'm also someone who's trying to, at the moment, not put pressure on myself to read every day if I don't want to, which is a new thing for me, but it's something that I've had to embrace. I'm also going to share all of the book purchases I've done in recent months, like a book haul. But the reason I'm doing that, I don't normally do book hauls on the channel. I stopped doing those a while ago as well, because they felt like a pressure. When I put my book haul on here, then I bought all these lovely books, and then you'd expect to see reviews of said books appearing on the channel, and then they wouldn't appear because I hadn't read them. And so I stopped doing them, because it felt like I was putting out these book haul videos, and then there may be an expectation that I would read the books, and that felt like pressure, so I stopped doing it. So, but I am going to share what I've bought in the last few months since September, because I feel like it's an indication of why I need to stop buying books for a little while and start reading what I own. So I'm going to get into the why I'm doing the challenge. I sat down to myself and I thought as well, I need to think about, if I'm doing this challenge, I need to think about why I don't read off my shelves, so that I can, you know, kind of think about why it is I don't do it, and try and work out what will make me do it, in terms of not just restricting myself, but why don't I read off my shelves? Like, what's stopping me? Because that may be a potential barrier to me completing the challenge. So I thought about what's stopping me, what potential barriers there are to me to completing a challenge like this, and how all of these things, these thoughts can make me think about how I can work around these barriers and actually achieve the challenge. So basically putting in, I didn't want to say rules, but they are going to be rules around how I read and what I buy and that kind of thing. So before we do that though, let's talk about what I've bought in the last few months. First of all, I'm going to talk about books I bought in September, and I actually bought quite a lot of brand new books in September. That's quite a lot for me anyway. So first of all, I bought, I don't know what order I bought them in, but I bought the Whisperwicks by Jordan Lees. And this I bought because I was desperate to get the Waterstones special edition. Children's books are one thing that I will continue to buy in physical format where possible, because at some point in my life I want to give them to the children in my life, or to local children. There's like a local library, lending library, we can give books to as well. So I will continue to buy children's books in physical form where possible, if I'm not borrowing them from Libby or BorrowBox or whatever, because I want to pass them on to either children in my life or to children locally, that kind of thing. And also, I just love children's books. They're so beautiful. Look at this. Like, they just don't spend as much time making adult books as beautiful as they do with children's books. So this book I've actually finished. In fact, it'd be quite good while we're doing this to count up what I've read and what I haven't read. So that is one on the red pile, and I've got a review coming of this because this will be one of my favourite books of the year by far. I absolutely love this book so much. It was great. So that's the Whisperwicks. The same day I bought the Whisperwicks, just because I was treating myself in Waterstones, I saw this was their book of the month, and this is also a signed edition. And it is a Waterstones exclusive edition. It's just, again, a beautiful book. And yeah, I just loved it and I treated myself to it. And it basically, on the back, it says, Richard Osman, who I love, says it's the Da Vinci Code for kids. So I was sold. So yeah, I haven't read that though. This I have not yet read, Evenfall. This is a book I have read. In fact, I'd read it before I bought it. I bought a copy because I wanted my own copy. I wanted the hardback because it's so beautiful, and it is Katie Lumsden's The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery Hurst. I've got a review for it. I'll link in the description box. It is amazing. This is one of my books of the year by far. I did pre-order the audiobook because I had thought I might go to Katie's book launch, and last year I pre-ordered her physical book and I went to the book launch and bought another physical book, so I sent that other one to the present to someone, which was fine. But what I did was, to get her pre-order numbers up, I pre-ordered the audiobook, and I also read the ebook on NetGalley. So I wanted a copy of the physical book, and at some point when I see Katie again, I need to get her to sign it, because yeah, I haven't done that. But isn't it beautiful? It's a gorgeous copy. So I bought that. I think I bought these all on the same visit to Waterstones. Then I also ordered from Waterstones one day, just because I felt like I needed some nice things in my life. Sometimes you just need a treat, and quite a lot of the time with books, that's what I end up doing. I bought the third book in the Amari and the Knight Brothers trilogy. I've only read the first one. I pre-ordered the second one. Do you think I've read the second one? No, I haven't read the second one. So I haven't read the second one. This is the third one, but I wanted it because I want to have the sort of matching series books. Yeah, so unread. Then I bought two picture books, Aaron Becker, The Tree in the River, and The Last Zookeeper. One is read, one is unread. And if you consider, I haven't even been able to sit down and read a wordless picture book because I like to take my time with them. This is getting to be a real example of why I need to do this challenge. In October, my partner and I, one Saturday, decided to go out for the day. We went to Cornwall because, being in Devon, the luxury of being able to go to Cornwall for the day is not lost on me. So we went down to a place called Charlestown, very historic, very beautiful, and there was an antiques place, and we were looking around the antiques place, and on the bookshelves I saw these stunning, I love these, the covers, look at them, Cornish like local memoirs. This guy, I don't know how you pronounce the name. I want to say Tangye. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up how to pronounce it. But these are little memoirs of this man and his wife who moved to Cornwall and they buy a flower farm, and it's the memoirs of their life on the flower farm with all the animals that they live with, and there are loads of these books. And so I saw them and I thought I'm going to get a couple of them for my Southwest Stories project, and yeah, here they are. They're just very, very cute, aren't they? And I found some more a little while ago as well. So yeah, A Quiet Year and A Cornish Summer, and I thought these would just be nice, light, cozy reading. So yeah, I got those. Then we went from Charlestown to a town further along called Fforde, and Fforde, I didn't know until I stood right under this statue, I'm going to put a picture up here of, that it's where Daphne du Maurier lived and wrote lots of books. And she wrote her first book there, which is this one, The Loving Spirit. And so I decided I needed to go and buy a copy of the book while I was there, because if I go and visit a bookshop in a place I've not been to, I will buy a book in there, because especially if it's an independent bookshop, yeah, just to support them. And it's also a bit of a memory for me of where I bought the book. I always make a little note. So yeah, I make a little note inside, bought in Daphne du Maurier's hometown of Fforde, and then I put in the little, you know, the bookshop, the local bookshop. And of course they have a huge Daphne du Maurier selection in there. So I bought this there and it was just wonderful. So I'm going to put a little bit of footage of that if I have time. If not, maybe I'll put together a tiny video of my day in Charlestown and Fforde and put that out for you. Oh, but this is also unread. Then I had the BookTube meetup in York, which was a few weeks ago now, and we had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Went up on the Saturday morning straight from Devon. It's a 5-hour train journey from Devon. Went up there, got there at 11:30 in the morning and met everybody, and we walked around and bought loads of books and laughed a lot. A few of us stayed over because it was so far, and yeah, we had an amazing time. And yeah, bought books, of course. So I bought some new books, I bought some secondhand books. The secondhand books that I bought, I couldn't resist a copy of this, The Big Over Easy by Jasper Fforde, which was the first Jasper Fforde book I ever read. And I've got loads of Jasper Fforde here, as you can see, and this was the first book I ever read, and I must have lent it to someone because I don't have it anymore, so I had to pick it up. The only sad part about it being it's secondhand, so it's nearly perfect condition apart from the faded spine, but yeah, I still really wanted it, so I got that. I got a couple of mid-20th century authors. I got Barbara Pym. I will always buy any Barbara Pym that I see. From Charles Heathcote. He was so sweet, and he was looking for Barbara Pym and he found a few, and then he was like, no, you can have them. And I was like, no, you found them. But he let me have this one. Well, I say let me, he was going to let me have both of them, and I was like, no, you must have one of them. So I got this one. I also saw Nancy Mitford. I've never read any Nancy Mitford, so yeah, I got a Nancy Mitford book. And then I got Elizabeth Gaskell, Mary Barton. I will also always pick up any Elizabeth Gaskell that I see because I think she's fantastic. I've only read 2 of her books and loved them both. Then I also picked up my first Anthony Trollope, The Warden. There may be a group read of this next year. I'm trying to organise with Pat from Book Chat with Pat. She says, I'm the only person on BookTube not to have read any Anthony Trollope. I'm like, no, you're not. And I also got a copy of The Warden recently. Let's buddy read it. And then a few people jumped on the comments. So we might be doing a group read of this next year. But once all of my Read What You Own challenge and mood reading stuff is over. But yes, I've wanted to read these books for so long. Yeah, so I was really pleased to find a copy of that. Also, these are all, aside from the Big Over Easy, which I've read before, unread. I also bought some new books in an amazing shop called, and I've got the sticker in the book here just to prove it, Criminally Good Books, which is one of the best crime bookshops I've ever seen in my life. I bought a copy of The Hound of the Baskervilles. One, because I absolutely adore these Macmillan classics, these tiny classics. I'm not one for a lot of the special editions. I really don't like the Penguin cloth-bound books. Don't like them, but I love these. I think they're so sweet and so cute and just gorgeous. So I've got a copy of The Hound of the Baskervilles because we were in there and all I kept thinking was Alice, my friend Alice, who passed away this year, who loved crime and loved Agatha Christie, would love this shop. So I wanted to buy something while I was in there, and I started reading Sherlock Holmes. I previously read The Hound of the Baskervilles, but I can't remember it, but it will have to count as a read book. But a lot of these books that I'm putting down as read, I've read them before I bought them. But yeah, I got them to put the sticker in. I said, why haven't you got a stamp? Because their shop sign is like a body outline. And I was like, you need a stamp with that on there to stamp the books. But yeah, so I got that and I'm putting that down on the red pile. And then in a shop called The Little Apple Bookshop, which was amazing, by the way, and I could have been in there for hours, but I was in the last booktubers to go in and one of the last to come out. There's so many of us, we have to go in stages, and then everyone had to come and get me out of it because I was the last one in there. But I found 2 signed copies of books that I would want. One is John Cooper Clarke's collection What, which I think is his most recent collection. Yeah, 2024, it's published this year. So John Cooper Clarke is one of the few poets that I read and like. I'm not a huge poetry reader, but I love John Cooper Clarke. And yeah, so it's a signed edition of What by John Cooper Clarke. And I've read a few of the poems on it on the train home, but not counting that as read. And then one I'm in the middle of reading, ta-da! And this was on my wish list, and it is Guitar by Earl Slick. Earl Slick was David Bowie's guitarist in the 70s, right through until I think he performed on his most recent album Black Star before he died, I think. But he was like his regular session lead guitar player, and on the live tours and on the albums and things like that. Not on all of the albums because he likes to swap up different guitar players, but he was one of his regular guitar players after Mick Ronson. So he first tours with David Bowie on the Diamond Dogs tour. I'm not going to go into this. I can see me rambling on about David Bowie and Earl Slick for a while here, but if you know anything about me, you'll know I'm a huge Bowie file, and yeah, so I had to get this because it was a signed copy. So yeah, I picked that up as well, and I'm in the process of reading that. So I think if I'm in the process of reading it, I might put it over onto the read pile, even though it's not read, but it's not like it's not being read. So here's a pile of secondhand books that I bought 2 weeks ago in the charity shops in Exeter, where my partner went to get his haircut. So we went into Exeter, he gets a haircut, and love it. Where he gets his haircut, there are non-stop charity shops. Whatever you call them in America, thrift stores, we call them like charity shops, secondhand shops. There were tons of them. So I went in and examined all of the books and came out with a big pile of them. And so I found 2 more of those Derek Tangye books. There were more in there, but I only bought 2. I didn't go nuts because I haven't read the other 2. So there's 2 of those. There's one with a badger on. I love badgers. Gull on the Roof is apparently the first one, so I got that. Unread. Then I also saw, yes, this Gardens of the Moon, Stephen Erickson. It's the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen 10-book series, which is reputed to be the most complicated, hardcore fantasy series you could ever read. And I feel like one day I will try and tackle it. Apparently most people will either get to halfway and give up of this book, or they'll love it and they'll just wax lyrical about the entire series. So I'm intrigued about this book, so I picked this up and I read the first few pages, and I have to say I enjoyed the first few pages. I don't know what I expected. People are like, you're kind of just thrown headlong in, he doesn't really give you much information. You have to be really astute, and I think it's not for the faint-hearted, and nor is it for anyone who's never read fantasy before. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. Then I found the last Peter Robinson DCI Banks book, and I love that series so much. In fact, the last 5 books I haven't read, and this is the very last book, and it was published posthumously, I believe, because Peter Robinson died last year or the year before. So yeah, I had to pick this up. Oh, this one was so exciting when I saw it. This is The Deptford Mice, book 1 by Robin Jarvis. So Robin Jarvis wrote a series called The Deptford Mice, which I've heard so many good things about, and it's supposed to be amazing. It is a middle grade, but it's kind of the sort of middle grade that adults like to read, and it's series 1 of a book about mice living in London. Deptford is in London, by the way, and in case you didn't know. And yeah, so it looks really great. I mean, look at the cover. Another children's series I want to read. This is book 1, Keeper of the Lost Cities by Messenger. Shannon Messenger, not Samantha Shannon. Shannon Messenger. This is supposed to be an amazing series. Lots of people love it. Lots of grown-ups love it. People even have tattoos of it. I had to pick up a copy when I saw it. Then I also picked up a copy of Orson Scott Card's Ender's Game. And I got this because I've been talking to my next door neighbour about books her child might like. And so he's a bit more obsessed with gaming, and so I thought, well, maybe he'll like Ender's Game. So I picked up a copy and I thought I'll read it and then I'll pass it on to them, because I've heard you can read it if you're like 13 plus, but I'm going to read it myself first to vet it and then pass it on to next door. And then I picked up for £1 a book I've wanted for ages, Sarum by Edward Rutherford, and I am reading it in the process of. So yeah, I'm a couple of 100 pages into this 1300 page book about Salisbury. I'm going to put that on the currently reading /read pile. And you thought that would be last, but no, it's not last. I then the next day, after going into Exeter and going to the charity shops, I dropped my partner off at the train station the next day because he was going to London, and we got 2 punctures in our tyres, and I took it to a quick fit and they were like, yeah, we could fit you in, but it could be 5 o'clock. This was at 9:30 in the morning by the time you get your car back. So that was me spending the day in Exeter, and I went to Waterstones, of course, and I thought I need a treat. I got The Borrowers by Mary Norton because I've always wanted to read it, and I keep looking for it in charity shops and I never find it, so I just treat myself to a copy. I got Kiki's Delivery Service because we're doing the Reading the Globe YA readathon, read along next year, which I will link just in the description box about that if you want to join us for it. We're reading translated and global young adult and middle grade fiction, so that. And I picked up the Waterstones Children's Book of the Month because they always do the special edition, and Alex T. Smith, who wrote this book, he normally writes amazing picture books, so I thought he's going to write a brilliant book, and it's Murder by Narwhal, and there's a narwhal on the sprayed edge. Then this turned up, which I pre-ordered, which is Designing Terry Pratchett's Discworld by Paul Kidby, who is the official Discworld artist who's done so much of the work around imagining the disc, the maps, the places, the characters, and I just had to get it, though I still love these covers. These are my favourite. These are the Josh Kirby covers, but Paul Kidby's amazing, so yeah, I had to get that. That was a pre-order, and that turned up the other day. Those are all the books I've bought since the beginning of September, and that's probably not as many as some people buy, but it's still a lot, and it's a lot for me really, but I've just been treating myself when I needed it. I've been treating myself with souvenirs because I like to buy books as souvenirs when I go to places. I've been just going a little bit crazy with my book buying. Some people buy far more books than this every month, but for me that's a lot. That's nearly 30 books. So yeah, it's 29 books, 22 are unread, and 7 are either read or in the process of being read. And the ones that have been read, some of them I read before I even bought the book. So you can see why I need to do a read what you own challenge. So we come to the why. That's why, because I have all these amazing books. I do want to read them. I've got all these amazing books. Like, all my shelves are stacked. My to be read shelves, they are stacked too deep for the TBR, the books I haven't read yet. And so I just want to read them. I want to read them. Cost is not a huge issue for me, like I said, because it would be good to save money, a little bit of money, because I don't have a huge amount of money, but I never really worry about the money I spend on books. I always think it's money well spent. However, I want to read them. That's the main thing. And also I want to cut down on the physical books that I have and buying physical books, because I'm reading a lot less physical books. I've been reading physical books less and less lately because I do have some chronic pain and issues in my arms, my elbows, and yeah, I'm awaiting treatment for one elbow, which is a mess that I may have to operate on it at some point, and my other elbow isn't that great, and as a result my wrists and my hands, all sorts of issues with my wrists and my hands and my arms, which means that quite a lot of the time holding books is a problem for me, and that's why I've been reading ebook a lot more. I got one of those clicky page turner things for my Kindle. You can kind of clip this thing onto your Kindle or to your iPad or whatever you're reading on, and then you can just hold your clicker and just turn the page, and it's immense for me. I need that. Also at night, my partner invariably goes to sleep before me and he can't have the light on, so I have a backlit Kindle screen. So my physical books, I'm reading less and less because physically I find it tricky to read them unless I can have a comfortable seat and put them somewhere, or have a stand, and you don't always have that option. I really don't have the time to sometimes just sit in a comfortable seat where I can be comfortable and read my book. So yeah, if I'm reading physically, as in like reading print, whether it be ebook or physical book, in bed is the best place for me to do that. If I'm which is the time that I get to do it. When I say best place, it's the time that I have to do it when I'm in bed, and that may be in the morning or it may be in the evening. I can't have the light on. And then the other part of it is that I listen to a lot of my books. So yeah, audiobooks have become hugely important in my life, and I need them. If I'm going to get any reading done, I invariably listen to more than I physically read, because I listen to them in the car, I listen to them when I'm cooking, I listen to them when I'm doing chores. So audiobooks have become a way for me to access my books, and I've become someone who needs books in multiple formats. So even if I have the ebook, I always want the audiobook to go along with the print book or the ebook. So yeah, audiobooks I'm not going to stop buying. but I am going to try and see if I can get them from Libby or BorrowBox to start with. But yeah, physical books, I need to kind of get rid of some of my physical books. So my Read What You Own challenge is mainly around my physical book collection. So where possible, I'm going to try and read the physical book and get an audiobook to match so that I can get through it. But that's kind of what I've done. Sometimes I've also got the ebook. So if I've got the ebook and the physical book, I'm going to prioritize those books first, because it means I'll get through them quicker. And then what I'll do is, if I didn't like it, or if it was a meh book, I'll probably DNF it, because I'm also doing that mood reading thing where I'm trying to just DNF books I'm not into. In terms of the things that are stopping me from reading my books, first of all, physical books, like I said, the physicalness of them is stopping me from reading them. Secondly, the biggest reason that I am not reading what I own and buying books continually is BookTube. BookTube is just the FOMO of all FOMO. People are constantly adding to my wish list and adding to my TBR. So I'm just going to have to be strict with that. I'm just going to have to, if there's books I want, I can put them on my wish list, my Amazon wish list, and they can just stay there until my Read What You Own challenge is over. Then I'm going to say the second thing that stops me from reading what I own is the library. I'm always borrowing books from the library, from BorrowBox, from Libby, the physical library, our little library in town. I think it's really, really important that I continue to borrow books from the library. So I am going to do that in terms of Libby and BorrowBox. Because we live in the countryside and services to the libraries are often cut if people aren't using them, I'm going to have to keep using the library, but I'm going to try and pull back on how I use it. So children's books, I might get some picture books out, that kind of thing, so that it's not going to interfere too much with the Read What You Own challenge. But yeah, I think I need to go into the physical library and get physical books out, because you use it or lose it in the countryside. That's the way it is. We had a library van that used to come into town, and I think it's stopped now because people weren't using it, which is terrible. The nearest library to me then is 8 miles away. So yeah. Then the third is subscription services. So Everand being the one that I have left. Audible, I stopped my annual subscription to Audible some time ago. However, they offered me 3 months for $3.99 each, so I thought that was quite a bargain, so I did that, but that's up next month and I'm going to cancel that. Everand, which I love, I not cancelled but postponed my subscription for 12 weeks, which should take me up to, I think it's going to take me up to February. Then I have to reinstate it or lose it. So I will reinstate it, but it's like Everand for me, actually it's one of the things that I'm going to give myself as a treat if I complete this challenge well. But Everand is just wonderful, but it's just another thing that gets in the way of me reading what I own. That's on pause. Audible I've got rid of. I don't have Kindle Unlimited anymore. The other subscription service I have is Spotify Premium, but that's for many, many reasons. But you also get 15 hours worth of audiobook listening. So I'm going to use that to help me with having the audiobooks of any physical books that I want to read if I can't find it on Libby or BorrowBox, because I also want the audiobooks as well. Barriers to the challenge. Well, the biggest barrier to the challenge really will be the numbers and goals thing, because that is something that really makes me anxious and stressed, is having a challenge where I have a specific goal to reach and a number. And I was sitting there thinking, well, I don't have to do 100 books. I could do 20 books, or I could do 5 books, or I could do 10 books. I was like, if I do 5 books or 10 books, it doesn't feel like a huge amount. And then I remembered what I've been doing lately for work. And if I have a big project or a lot of things to do, like a lot of papers to mark I had in the last few months, I've had lots of huge 18,000 word essays to read, right, dissertations. What I will do, if I sit there and think I have to read an 18,000 word dissertation, that freaks me out. So what I do is I time block. So I'll be like, right, I'm going to read essays for an hour and a half. That's what I'll do. So I was like, oh, why don't I take this time blocking idea for the Read What You Own challenge, because I don't have a specific number I want to get to. I just want to have a bit of time. So I've given myself till one of these things happens. The next UK booktuber meetup, which will probably be in March, or because I'm also currently mood reading, I'll do it until I run out of things that interest me on my shelves. And I've got a lot of things that interest me on my shelves because they're my shelves, right? So yeah, whichever one comes up first will be the end of the challenge for me. And then I can just tot up what I've read. So we come to some rules. The rules are going to be no buying physical books, even secondhand books, unless I'm buying them for a reading project, like the Reading the Globe YA project that I've got coming up, or FOMO Book Club, or if I'm buying a present for someone else. I often buy, because I didn't show you, I bought quite a lot of books in the last few months which will be for other people for either birthdays or Christmas, and they're down there and I can't show you them because people will see them. And then I basically just need to avoid bookshops. But I am going to allow myself to buy souvenir books. So if I go to a reading event like with an author, which you never know, I haven't got anything planned, but you just don't know. If I go to a town with my partner, like we go to one we've never visited before and they have a bookshop, I'm going to allow myself to buy a book as souvenir because I do that and I love that. And yeah, so that's something I'm not going to stop doing. But that would be very rare. I'm not going to go to a town and buy a ton of books like I did when I go to the charity shops. I'm going to avoid the charity shops, to be quite honest with you. Audiobooks, I'm not going to stop myself from buying audiobooks. If I want it, I'm going to have an audiobook because they're very important to me. And if I can't find it on Libby or BorrowBox, if it's an audiobook I want because I'm reading the physical book, then I'll allow myself to buy it on Zigzag or Audrey, which are my favourite audiobook apps, or Spotify Premium because I've got that subscription anyway. Ebooks, people might say, well, they're not physical books, they're not taking up space, but they are still books I want to read. So going back to why I want to do this challenge, I don't want to keep buying books that I want to read and not reading them. And also, I used to subscribe to the Kindle 99p deal, and I'm like, well, it's a bargain, isn't it? It's 99p. Well, it's only a bargain if you're going to read the book. Otherwise, it's not a bargain. It's just something you've spent £1 on that you're not going to do anything with. So it's £1 out the door with nothing to show for it. So with the ebook challenge, I am going to carry on buying ebooks if it's on my wish list and it's in the 99p deal. So what I do is every now and again I go into my wish list and I've reorganised it and sort it by price lowest to highest, and books that are gone on sale will suddenly pop up at the top as 99p that have been on my wish list for a while. That's when I'm allowed to buy ebooks. And only then, because I'd be silly not to buy a book that I've wanted if it goes onto a bargain deal like that. But I'm also going to try and get ebooks from things like Libby or BorrowBox or Project Gutenberg. Also allowed gifts, people can send me gifts, and I'm allowed review books. So I only take review books I don't take unsolicited review books, by the way, and I've got some backed up still, but I take them because I review books for children's websites. So that's what I do. So I'm also allowed to swap a book if I take some to a little free library and put them in. If I see a book that is on my wish list, I'm allowed to swap a book out. So that's the only thing that I've thought of. So that's my challenge. My challenge is time blocked. It is not goal specific, so it's time specific, and if I run out of books in that time that I am interested in reading, then I'm going to stop the challenge. But seeing as I bought all these books because they were really interesting to me, I don't see that happening. Are you taking part in a Read What You Own challenge? And do you think my one is different from other people's, or is it just silly? I don't know. I'm going to try it anyway. I just got so many great books, and it would just be awful if I didn't read them. Bought them because they look amazing and they are just calling out to be read. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to get some FOMO for people reading new books. I am going to get FOMO for reading events that or group reads of books that I've wanted to read and I don't have a copy of, but I'm just going to have to live with it for now. That's part of the challenge, isn't it? If you've got this far, please leave me, I would say, a book stack emoji if you have nothing to say. This has been a very long video. If you like this video and you've never been here before and you like this kind of rambling nonsense, I don't know why you would, but you might. Maybe consider subscribing and sticking around to see if I complete my challenge, if I make it through till the next BookTube meetup, and how many books I might read in that time. Hopefully, I'll see you again here soon. Bye.